Happy fall, Carleton. My name is Josh Carson.
And I'm Skylar Rowe. We have a great show for you today, so without further ado,
Welcome to CTN News. President Obama has announced new programs to address the growing crisis over student loans and college affordability. In a press conference on Tuesday afternoon, plans were announced to reduce the maximum payment on student loans from 15% of annual discretionary income to 10% beginning next year. These plans also require any remaining debt to be forgiven after 20 years instead of 25 and lets borrowers consolidate their loans into one at a lower interest rate. According to the White House, the proposal could affect at least 7.4 million borrowers at no additional cost to the taxpayer.
President Obama also announced last Friday that the remaining 40,000 troops still in Iraq will be home for the holidays after more than 8 years of U.S. presence. The Iraqi people appear eager to see the troops finally leave.
The Tunisian elections, which were held earlier this week, were poised to become, In Africa, the Tunisian elections, which earlier this week were poised to become a model for further elections in the wake of the Arab Spring, turned south on Thursday after violence broke out across the country. Protesters, who had become angry that their fourth-place party had been removed from the polls due to financial irregularities, marched through the Ennahda headquarters, burning tires and smashing windows.
Moving to Latin America, Chilean student protests continued into their 6th month this week, with 250 students being arrested in Santiago as students clashed with police and continued their calls for a nonprofit education system. The protesters, who include both college and high school students, call on the government to take control of the Chilean educational system, a system that is among the most privatized in the world.
It seems that Tunisia and Chile are not the only places civic engagement is commonplace. Students at Carleton have taken up a cause of their own. CTN's Jacob Cohn has the story.
For over a month, people all over the world have been taking to the streets in a series of protests against what they see as a flawed social and economic structure. Occupy Wall Street began its occupation of Lower Manhattan's Zuccotti Park in September, and since then, dozens of protests have sprung up all over the world, including at the Hennepin County Government Plaza in Minneapolis. And as the movement spread beyond New York City, some Carleton students began exploring how they could play a part.
Both Matt and I are in a class called Nonviolent Social Change right now with Terrence Wiley in the religion department. It is absolutely phenomenal. After reading all these texts and understanding what it means to disagree with the government and to want to change things, how we go about creating the change that we see that needs to be made. So it kind of all coiled up into this perfect storm where we started thinking about these things in rapid succession, and then Occupy Wall Street comes along, and we're sitting here reading our text, and we're like, man, why are we just reading? We should be doing something.
The movement's critics have often said that Occupy Wall Street has no real goal other than protest, and part of this perception comes from the fact that the movement has no leaders. The system used in the New York protest, which has been adopted elsewhere, is a general assembly that makes important decisions by consensus. Fitzgerald says that he and Cross don't speak for the movement because, in effect, no one can.
There is not one particular message nor one particular leader. What is important and fundamentally critical to understand about the movement is that the ends and the means are the same thing. That is to say that by gathering and creating a space for dialogue, by occupying the park, the purpose of Occupy Wall Street is achieved. At this point, the movement does not have any sort of claims or goals so much as it is to create a space for dialogue.
The Occupy protests have differed not only in size, but in their relationship with law enforcement. While 7 Occupy Minnesota protesters were arrested in one demonstration near the U.S. Bank building in Minneapolis, overall protests here have been peaceful. But over 100 arrests were made in California during the recent dispersal of Occupy Oakland, which led to criticism of Oakland police who used tear gas and rubber bullets on protesters. At Occupy Wall Street itself, hundreds of arrests have been made over the course of the protests, including the arrest of 700 people on October 1st in an attempted march across the Brooklyn Bridge. Cross and Fitzgerald say that while Carleton students may not be able to join these larger protests, there are still ways for them to be active in the movement.
My personal opinion, although this may not be shared by the rest of the committee, is that the first and foremost is to educate students, because the most important thing is that people can think for themselves and to make informed decisions about how they live their lives, as well as looking into the next election cycle. One of the criticisms that has evolved through Occupy is that it's only sort of feeding to a certain group of people, and we need to be aware at Carleton that we have a very, very diverse, very wealthy range of experience, and so it's important to bring all that in and to make sure that everyone's involved. That's what I would like to see.
Fitzgerald and Cross say they're organizing more forums at Carleton later in the term, an important part of their goal of showing how Occupy Wall Street can be brought to Northfield. For CTN News, I'm Jacob Cohn.
Thanks, Jacob. European Union leaders have reached an agreement to help solve the debt crisis that's engulfing the Eurozone. The deal forgives some of the Greek government's debt and expands the EU's rescue fund for troubled economies. Stocks in Europe and the U.S. rose Thursday after the deal was announced.
Flooding in Thailand has grown increasingly severe. The governor of Bangkok has begun evacuating residents, but with more water on the way and inadequate flood defenses, the city center is in grave danger.
In related news, the 7.2 magnitude earthquake that hit Turkey on Sunday has left over 500 dead. The devastation is compounded by freezing conditions and the government's initial rejection of foreign assistance.
It was a sad week for animal activists. Last year in Vietnam, a wild Javan rhinoceros was killed in the Cat Tien National Park for its horn. The World Wildlife Fund confirmed on Monday that it was the last of its kind, and this subspecies is now officially extinct. In other animal news, PETA, or People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, is launching a lawsuit against SeaWorld, claiming that the kidnapping, confinement, and forced reproduction of orca whales in SeaWorld pools is a form of slavery. SeaWorld has countered the claim, stating that it follows strict regulations, which ensure high standards of veterinary care.
It hasn't been the best year for the college's main form of transportation, bicycles. CTN's Ken Schiller has the story.
If you're a student at Carleton, there's a good chance you've used a bike at some point to get around campus. Bikes are so common that it's easy to forget that they're a target for theft.
So I was in the lab for at most 10 minutes and I came out and my bike wasn't there.
I parked it there at like 4 p.m. for soccer practice, and when I got back at 6, it was gone.
How big of an issue are bike thefts at Carleton? We went to the campus security office to ask some questions.
Wayne Eisenhuth, Director of Security at Carleton College. School started in September. We've had 12 bicycles reported stolen. There are probably just as many that haven't been reported.
So who's behind the thefts?
I'd say people just joyriding them.
I'd like to think that it's just kids trying to have fun.
Wayne Eisenhuth has another theory based off of a tip-off from Mike's Bike Shop in downtown Northfield.
His employees seem to think there was a chop shop operation. Just by the sheer numbers of the number of bicycles we've had stolen, that's unusual. So it's either a ring operating out of the Twin Cities or a chop shop in the area that's using it for parts and selling the parts.
So how are students in security responding to the recent surge in thefts?
I feel like my bike is pretty safe here at Burton. There are a lot of other bikes, ample opportunities for bike theft, so I have kind of a low chance of my bike in particular being stolen.
I use 2 locks now. When I'm in my dorm, which is good here, I use a bar lock, one of those U things, but it's too heavy to carry with me around, so I use this during the day, the cable lock.
If I had a bike, I would definitely be a lot more careful with locking it.
I've been locking the door to my room much more often. Previously, I almost always left it unlocked, but now I lock it just about every time I leave. I don't know, I guess I have this new thing where I don't trust people.
I don't think it's a good idea to leave a bike unlocked, even on a campus as isolated as Carleton is.
It's not something that I think security can control. I mean, if you look around here, how many bikes are parked, I don't know how you can expect security to do something about that.
We have a limited number of staff. We try to keep our eyes on the bicycle racks. If we see somebody suspicious, we try to identify them. And if they have no good reason to be on campus, we escort them off. But again, that's hard because the campus is open to townspeople.
Carleton is pretty safe, but there are a lot of people moving through campus every day. Even bikes that are locked up are at risk of being stolen. Wayne has 3 tips for keeping your bike safe.
You can just walk down in front of sales and see the number of bicycles that are locked with a cable lock. And a lot of those cables are so thin, you can take a line cutters and cut them. So if you really want to protect your bike, you have to get a quality bike lock, a kryptonite or a master lock, a U-lock. The bicycle we had reported stolen was valued at $1,200. So consider leaving the expensive bicycles at home and getting a less expensive bike to ride around campus. We do have a registration program, bicycle registration program through Security Services. It's free. You just come in, you fill out a card. We give you a sticker with a unique number on it. That way, if it is stolen and found in town or on the St. Olaf's campus, they can call us up with the number on the sticker and we can identify the owner that way.
Remember Wayne's 3 tips and don't steal bikes. This is CTN Local News.
Thanks, Ken.
Security isn't the only one responsible for your stuff. Make sure you always lock up your bike.
If you are like me and an avid consumer of online media, there are a few things to note this week. U.S. House lawmakers have introduced new provisions to the Protect IP Act, a measure aimed at combating rogue websites that sell pirated content. The bill would let the U.S. Attorney General seek court orders to block foreign websites that steal and sell U.S. products. The measure has been criticized for being too overreaching, potentially disrupting internet traffic, and harming legitimate sites such as YouTube and Twitter.
Meanwhile, WikiLeaks has stopped publishing new material and says it may be forced to shut down by the end of this year because the group is running out of money. In a statement on Monday, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange blamed a financial blockade by American financial companies for crippling the group's fundraising ability.
For all you World Cup fans, Brazilian Minister of Sports Orlando Silva resigned on Wednesday over accusations of corruption. He is accused of embezzling $23 million from a fund to promote soccer to poor children. He was in charge of preparing both the 2014 World Cup and the 2016 Olympics, both of which will be held in Brazil. He is the fifth cabinet minister to resign because of corruption since President Dilma Rousseff took charge in January.
That's it for news. Let's hear from Andrew Seeley at the Sports Desk.
Thanks, guys. The fall sports season is starting to wind up, but many of our Carleton teams looked impressive. The men's soccer team currently sits at 11-4-2 in the season, good for first in the MIAC with only one conference loss. The Knights have only been defeated once in their last 11 games. Carleton hopes to continue its playoff run deep into the conference playoffs with the potential to earn an NCAA tournament bid. The women's soccer team is currently in second place in the MIAC and is clinched a berth in this conference playoffs. The Knights are hoping to make their third straight trip to the NCAA regionals, but they'll need to pick up some big wins in the conference tournament to do so. The women's cross-country team is very excited about the great results they've seen so far this year, having finished second, fourth, and first in meets this season, earning them a national ranking of 23. October 20th and 29th brings the MIAC Championships, where the team hopes to continue their strong year. The football team is currently 2-5 on the year. Their first win came during homecoming with a 34-0 shutout win over Hamline University. The second coming in overtime against McAllister this past weekend. The Knights' Achilles heel has been the second half when they've been consistently outscored by their opponents this year. The women's golf team recently finished a storybook season, bolstered by a strong freshman class, highlighted by Stanford's Gina Cabasakalis and Taylor Wells, who have each placed as high as second this season. The team finished no worse than seventh in any of their contests this year and ultimately finished fourth in the MIAC Championships. The Carleton volleyball team has also been making strides this year, already eclipsing last year's win total. Sam Keys hit the court to find out more.
As the season winds down, the Carleton Knights volleyball team is tied for 7th place in the MIAC, but have a winning record overall. The team's size and athleticism have come into play this year, helping the Knights eclipse last season's win total.
We're a very tall team, so we're good at blocking and intimidating the other team.
Our middles are very strong. We have very good middles between Jessa Yuso and Rachel Johnson. Our middles are probably some of the best in the MIAC.
While the Knights won't qualify for the conference playoffs this season, the players consider the year a success. They're looking forward to the future, but understand that much hard work lies ahead.
We're a good team, but we're young still and still kind of getting used to playing with each other.
We have some stuff to work on, but we're going to get there eventually. We'll make it. We'll just get our mental game together and we'll be set to go.
For CTN News, I'm Sam Keys.
That's all we have for sports now. We'll send it back to the news desk.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. If you liked what you saw or didn't and want to participate, email us at ctn@carleton.edu.
Make sure you check out Chef, the cooking show.
That's it for today. Keep an eye out for Schiller, and thanks for watching CTN News.